Hashtag Kievan Rus, a dark saga of power, blood, and fate. Part 1. The prince who was never meant to be. That night the Dnipro River was darker than the sky. A northern wind swept over the hills of Kiev, and even the watchfires trembled as if afraid to look into the darkness. The city slept, unaware that history had already taken a step forward, quiet, almost invisible, yet irreversible. High above the river, inside a wooden palace, a child was being born. The woman screamed, but her cries were swallowed by thunder. The midwife crossed herself and whispered prayers, not to Christ, but to the old gods. In her heart she knew, this birth carried doom. He is not like the others, she whispered when the child finally cried. He is watching. And it was true. The child's eyes were open, dark, attentive, as if he had not entered the world, but returned to it. Thus began a story of Kievan Rus that no one had planned. Before princes, this land belonged to tribes. The Drevlians, the Paulians, the Severians, the Kriviks. They fought one another, burned villages, stole women, sacrificed to the gods, and believed the world was held together by blood and fear. There was no law, only custom. The strong took, the weak died, and if the gods were silent, it meant all was as it should be. But from the north and the sea came a new force, the Varangians. They did not pray to these gods. They did not fear these forests. And they knew a word unknown here, power. Strangers from the sea. Their ships appeared suddenly, long and narrow like serpents, silver helmets, axes, eyes without fear. The Varangians did not ask. They demanded. Pay tribute and we leave, they said. And if we don't, then we stay. The tribes paid with fur, silver, children. Until one day, someone dared to say it aloud. What if we invite them to rule us? Thus was born an idea that would destroy the old world. A prince without a crown. His name was Rurik. Legends followed him before he ever set foot on this land. Some said he had killed his own brother. Others said he had sold his soul to the sea gods. All agreed on one thing. Where Rurik ruled, there was order. But the price was high. He did not come with an army, but with a promise. I will give you peace, he said, and you will give me power. The tribes agreed. They were tired of killing one another. Thus a prince was born, not chosen by gods, not born of this land, but crowned by fear. A death that opened the path. Rurik died suddenly. Some said illness, others whispered poison. Some claimed the gods had come to collect a debt. But what mattered most was this. His son was only a child, too young to rule, too weak to survive this world. And then, from the shadows, he stepped forward. Oleg. They called him many names. Oleg the seer, Oleg the sorcerer, Oleg the one who knows. He was not a prince by blood. He wore no crown, but he held the most dangerous thing of all, knowledge. I will rule in the boy's place, he said, until he grows. No one objected. Those who did not live long. Kiev, the city that must be taken to the south, stood Kiev, rich, dangerous, a city of trade and ambition. It was ruled by other Varangians, ass-cold and dear. Oleg looked at the city and understood. Whoever holds Kiev holds Rus. He did not come with war. He came with deceit. I am a merchant, he told the guards. I bring goods for your princes. When the gates opened, it was already too late. Askold and Deer fell to the ground, never understanding who had killed them. Standing over their bodies, Oleg spoke the words that would change history. Let Kiev be the mother of Rus cities. From that moment, Rus ceased to be a collection of tribes. It became a state. The prophecy. That same night, a pagan seer came to Oleg. Pork, you will not die by sword, he said. Not by arrow, but by the horse you love. Oleg laughed. Then I am immortal. He did not yet know that some prophecies wait for years. End of part 1. Kiev slept, unaware that within its walls a boy was growing. Rurik's son. A boy who would become prince. A boy who would drown Rus in blood. A boy whose name even enemies would fear. His name was Igor. But that is another story. Hashtag Kievan Rus. Hashtag a dark saga of power, blood, and fate. Hashtag part 2. Tribute of blood. A prince raised in shadow. Igor grew up in Kiev, but Kiev was never his home. He saw the city from the height of the princely court. Golden roofs, wooden walls, markets where everything was traded. Fur, honey, slaves, lives. Yet he knew none of it truly belonged to him. The real ruler was Oleg. Igor sat beside him like a shadow. He was taught how to hold a sword, but not allowed to raise it. He was taught how to rule men, but never allowed to command them. Endure, Oleg said. Power comes to those who know how to wait. Igor waited, but inside him, something else grew. Rage. The death of the seer years passed. Oleg became a legend. He marched on Constantinople, nailed his shield to the gates of foreign capitals, mocked gods and fate alike. He believed he had outwitted the prophecy. One day he remembered the horse. Where is the horse they spoke of? He asked. Dead, my prince, long ago. You see, Oleg laughed. A lie. He stepped toward the bones, placed his foot on the skull. From the darkness, a serpent emerged. The bite was swift, almost gentle. Oleg did not scream. He sat down. Minutes later, he lay still. Thus Rus lost the seer, and for the first time stood unprotected. Igor takes the throne. Igor became prince without magic, without legend, without the fear Oleg inspired, and that was the danger. The tribes began to stir. The Drevlians whispered of rebellion. The Severians delayed their tribute. The Krivichs counted their warriors. Igor watched and understood one thing. If he did not become cruel, he would be devoured. Tribute Rus lived by Polyuti, the collection of tribute. The prince traveled the lands and took what he wished. Those who refused died. Those who hid wealth lost their villages. Oleg knew restraint. Igor did not. They are rich, Igor said. Why should I take little? The Drevlians paid in fur, in silver, in slaves. But it was not enough. A land that does not forgive. The land of the Drevlians was dark. Forests stood thick as if the sky itself had been hidden on purpose. The people watched from beneath their brows. They remembered the time before princes. When Igor came the first time, they paid. When he left, they breathed again. Then he returned. We have already paid, they said. Not enough, the prince replied. His warriors said nothing. Silence can be worse than shouting. Betrayal grows slowly. He is weak, the Drevlian said. Greedy. Not like Oleg. They did not plan rebellion at once. They waited. And the moment came. The death of a prince. Igor rode back, without guard. He decided to return once more, to take more tribute. It was a fatal mistake. The Drevlians seized him silently. No battle, no words. They tied his legs to two bent trees, and then They released them. The forest heard the crack, the earth heard the scream, and Rus lost its prince. Thus died Igor, not in battle, not as a hero, but as a warning. A prince of 3 years in Kiev. Only 2 remained, a small son of Igor, and a woman no one took seriously. A widow. Her name was Olga, and the Drevlians believed they had won. They did not yet know they had awakened something far worse than war. End of Part 2. Olga stood over her husband's body. She did not cry. She did not scream. She did not tear her hair. She remembered. And when the Drevlians sent envoys with a marriage proposal, she smiled. It was the most dangerous smile in the history of Rus. Kievan Rus, a dark saga of power, blood, and fate. Part 3. The Princess of Vengeance. Silence. After death, Kiev was too quiet. Warriors moved slowly as if afraid to disturb the air itself. People did not know where to look, at the child prince or at the woman seated beside him. Olga sat on the princely throne, straight-backed, calm, with the cold eyes of someone who had already decided everything. "The prince is dead," someone whispered. "Rus is alive," Olga replied. And that mattered more. The envoys. The Drevlians came confident. Their words were bold, almost cheerful. "Your husband was greedy. We punished him. Marry our prince, and there will be peace." They expected tears, begging, fear. Olga smiled. "You speak well," she said, "but your honor is small. Come back tomorrow. I will receive you as guests deserve." The envoys left satisfied. They did not know Kiev was already digging a pit. The first revenge. The next day, the Drevlians were carried on their hands, like honored guests. People watched. Some crossed themselves. Some turned away. When the pit opened, it was too late. "Is this honor to your liking?" Olga asked. They screamed. They begged. They swore oaths. The earth swallowed their voices slowly. Olga watched until it was silent. "This is only the beginning," she said. The second wave. The Drevlians did not understand. They thought it an accident, a misunderstanding, a Kiev intrigue, and they sent their best men. "You are tired from the road," Olga said. "First the bathhouse, then we will speak." The doors closed. The fire rose quickly. Smoke climbed toward the sky, toward gods who did not answer. No one came out. The third blow. "I will come to you myself," Olga told the Drevlians. "Let us hold a funeral feast for Igor." They rejoiced. Peace? Perhaps. Wine flowed freely. Men drank, laughed. When they fell, the sword spoke. They say that day the earth drank more blood than rain in a year. A city that must burn. But the final act remained. Askorostan stood strong. Walls. Warriors. Confidence. "I am tired of war," Olga said. "Give me tribute, 3 pigeons from each house." They laughed. A woman. Soft. Clever, but no warrior. They gave her the birds. Fire from the sky. At night, smoldering cloth was tied to the birds' legs, and they were released. The pigeons flew home, under roofs, into attics. Fire spread like a thought. Iskorostan burned. People ran, screamed, fell. Olga stood in silence. "Now there is peace," she said. The ruler. She returned to Kiev not as a widow, but as a sovereign. The tribe submitted. Tribute became order. Fear became law. And the little prince grew, watching his mother, learning to be silent, to wait, to remember. End of Part 3. Olga stood by the Dnipro. "A sword is not the only weapon," she told her son. "The mind is the most terrible of all." The boy nodded. His name was Sviatoslav, and he would choose a different path. Hashtag Kievan Rus. Hashtag a dark saga of power, blood, and fate. Hashtag Part 4. The Prince Without a Home. Hashtag a child who hated walls. Sviatoslav did not love Kiev. The palaces felt cramped, the roofs pressed down on his breath, the councils bored him. He was raised among warriors. He slept on the ground, ate from a shared pot, held a sword before he learned to write. A prince must live like his warriors, he said, not hide behind walls. Olga watched him in silence. She understood. This was not a ruler of schemes, but a ruler of war. I am coming for you. When Sviatoslav became prince, he did not summon councils. He did not build alliances. He did not ask permission. He sent messengers with only 2 words. I am coming for you. No threats, no explanations. That was worse than an ultimatum. The first strikes. He struck where no one expected. Tribes that had balanced for years between Rus and its enemies fell one by one. Why don't you take tribute? They asked him. Because I do not need slaves, he replied, and I need warriors. Those who submitted lived. Those who hesitated disappeared. The Khazar Khaganate. To the east stood a power feared by all. The Khazars took tribute from tribes, cities, and trade routes alike. They were rich. They were confident. They considered Rus a minor threat. They were wrong. Sviatoslav did not march on the capital first. He destroyed the heart. Cities burned. Fortresses fell. Trade routes went silent. The Khaganate cracked like old bone. The world shuddered. A prince who looked beyond. Now we are strong, his warriors said. No, Sviatoslav answered. Now we are a target. He knew this truth well. When you rise, enemies appear on their own. And he turned his gaze south, toward an empire, gold and deceit. Byzantium was different. It did not strike first. It smiled. It paid gold. It set enemies against one another. They offered Sviatoslav an alliance. Fight for us, they said. Then we will divide the world. He accepted. A warrior does not fear betrayal. He expects it. The Balkans' Rus marched far from home. New lands, new cities, new graves. Sviatoslav fought at the front, without helmet, without fear. His warriors believed, as long as he lived, they were immortal. The trap. But empires do not tolerate strong allies. When Rus was weakened by war, when the army was far from home, when the roads back became dangerous, the gates closed. Sviatoslav understood. He had been used. The road home. The journey back was brutal. No allies, no supplies, through hostile lands. We will return and begin again, he said, but not all roads allow return. End of Part 4. At the Dnipro Rapids they were already waiting. Those who knew the paths. Those who were paid. Those promised gold for a prince's head. Sviatoslav did not know this would be his final campaign. Hashtag Kievan Rus, a dark saga of power, blood, and fate. Part 5. The death of the warrior and the war of brothers. The rapids. The Dnipro roared. Spring waters smashed against stone, white foam rising as if the river itself was warning them. Do not go further. Sviatoslav stood on the shore. No helmet. A sword worn smooth by years of war. Eyes of a man who had lived fast and fully. We pass here, he said, or we die here. And the warriors followed him. The ambush. The Pechenegs were waiting. They knew the place, they knew the time. They knew exactly whose blood they wanted. Arrows fell from the hills like black rain. Shouts mixed with the roar of water. Blood ran between the stones. Sviatoslav fought at the front. They say he struck down more enemies than he saw. They say he laughed. They say he never stepped back. But even warriors fall. The end of the prince. When he fell, the sky seemed low. The Pecheneg Khan approached him. "So here you are," he said. "The prince without a home." Sviatoslav's head was cut off. His skull was covered in gold and made into a cup, a vessel to drink victory from, a reminder of the strength of an enemy. Thus died Sviatoslav, not in a palace, not in a bed, but where he lived, in battle. 3 sons. Rus awoke an orphan, and immediately divided. Sviatoslav left behind 3 sons. Yaropolk, the eldest, ruling in Kiev. Oleg, ruling the Drevlians. Vladimir, ruling in Novgorod, son of a servant woman. Different blood, different temper, all dangerous. Brother against brother Oleg died first. Some said it was an accident. Some said it happened in the chaos of battle. Some said Yaropolk never intended it. But death is death. Blood was spilled, and the road back disappeared. Flight Vladimir understood quickly. I am next. He fled north, to the Varangians, to men who ask no questions. I will give you gold, he said. And you will give me an army? They smiled. The return. Vladimir returned, changed. Iron, fire, foreign tongues in his ranks. Cities fell one by one. Brother fought brother again. Kiev waited. The last brother Yaropolk remained in the city. They promised him peace. They promised him safety. They betrayed him. When he entered a narrow passage, Varangians struck from both sides. Yaropolk fell, and Rus was left with one ruler. End of part 5. Vladimir stood in Kiev. He looked upon the city he had not inherited, but taken through blood. Now I am prince, he said. But the gods were silent, because they knew the greatest change was still to come. Hashtag Kievan Rus. Hashtag a dark saga of power, blood, and fate. Hashtag part 6. The prince who sought the light. A pagan throne. Vladimir ruled alone. He had taken power by force, by steel, by betrayal, and he ruled as he had come, brutally. On the hills of Kiev stood idols, wooden gods with empty eyes, Perun, Kors, Dazbog. They demanded blood. Horses were slaughtered. Prisoners were sacrificed. Once, even a man and his son. Vladimir watched and felt nothing. That frightened him. The emptiness of power. He had everything a prince could desire. Lands, gold, women, fear. But peace never came. At night he dreamed of his brothers, of rivers running red, of gods who did not answer. If this is power, he thought, why does it feel hollow? The search for faith. Vladimir did something no prince before him had done. He listened. Messengers arrived from distant lands, from the Muslims who spoke of one God and strict law, from the Latins who spoke of Rome and obedience, from the Jews who spoke of loss and endurance, from the Greeks who spoke of light and mystery. Each said, "Our faith is the true one." Vladimir did not listen to words alone. He watched faces, the city of heaven. The Greek envoys spoke of Constantinople, of a church where light poured from the dome, where voices rose like wings, where men forgot they stood on earth. We did not know whether we were in heaven or on earth, his envoys later said. That stayed with him. The choice. If this is a lie, Vladimir said, I will lose everything. If it is truth, I will change everything. For the first time, he chose not as a warrior, but as a man tired of darkness. Baptism. The water was cold. Vladimir stepped into it slowly. without crown, without sword. They say he went blind, and when he emerged, he saw, not the world around him, but himself. A city in the river, whoever does not come is my enemy, Vladimir declared. People went to the river, some from fear, some from hope, some without understanding. The Dnipro accepted them all, and the city that had known only fire and blood entered a new age. The fall of the idols. The idols were torn down. Perun was dragged through the streets, beaten with sticks, thrown into the river. Some wept, some were silent, some looked forward. The past was sinking. End of part 6. That night Kiev was quiet. No screams, no sacrifices, no blood on the stones. Only water flowing. And far above it, a sky that no longer seemed empty. Hashtag Kievan Rus. Hashtag a dark saga of power, blood, and fate. Hashtag part 7. After the fire. A changed ruler, Vladimir did not wake up as a saint. He was still a man who had killed brothers. Still a ruler who understood fear better than mercy. But something had shifted. The rage that once drove him forward no longer ruled him completely. He looked at Kiev differently now. Not as a prize taken by blood, but as something fragile. Something that could be built or lost forever. A new order. The prince began to rule not only with force. He gave land to churches. He invited priests and scholars. He ordered children of nobles to learn letters. Where idols once stood, churches rose. Where sacrifice pits lay, bells rang. Law replaced custom. Word replaced blade. Not everywhere, not at once, but the direction was set. Thought that he worked mercy and memory. Vladimir freed prisoners. He fed the poor at his own table. He forbade human sacrifice forever. Some called him weak. He did not answer. He remembered who he had been, and knew strength did not always look like steel. Rus among the world. Foreign rulers no longer spoke of Rus as a land of barbarians. They sent envoys. They negotiated marriages. They wrote treaties. Rus had entered the world not only as a force, but as a state. The weight of the past. At night, Vladimir still dreamed of Oleg's prophecy, of Igor torn apart, of Olga's fire, of Sviatoslav dying by the river. Faith did not erase blood. It only taught him how to live with its memory. Legacy Vladimir understood one final truth. A state is not built in light alone. It is forged in darkness and survives only if it learns to change. He had been both destroyer and creator, and Rus carried both within it. Epilogue. Kievan Rus was born in fear, raised in war, hardened by blood, but it chose once to turn toward the light. Not perfectly, not forever, but enough to leave a mark on history, and every bell that rang over the Dnipro remembered the fire that came before it. End of the saga.